So the marketplace is not what it used to be. And speaking of comps, like, you can't compare your movie that you're developing today to a 2019 movie, for example. That does not equate. So foreign sales is absolutely antiquated. There's so many less investors because they're seeing that Sundance, as an example, it's not like, every day there used to be another huge sale. That's not happening as much anymore. But I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think that just makes that you guys have to be that much smarter about how you guys operate.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to talk to you about how exciting the marketplace is right now, and really try to make this as impactful as possible. I was telling this amazing group that 15 years ago, my husband and I were sitting right in the same theater listening to other producers and filmmakers talk about how to make independent film, and we had never made an independent film before. We made documentaries, but not our first indie narrative, and we left scared and realizing that, oh wow, we're gonna have to do this ourselves and it's gonna be really hard. But we did it. And I think the big takeaways here are each of all of this group has amazing stories and amazing journeys. We wanna talk about the challenges that are existing in the independent film market, and we hope to inspire you to find your own loopholes to try to make your own movie, because no matter what, each of us had a different path in making our films, but there was a path, there was a small little hole, a small little opportunity to get through there, and that's what we're going to talk about, is how we can figure out how to help you make your movies, and hopefully there might be a good match someplace else in the room to find partnerships. So if we could start by, again, just briefly introducing yourselves, talk about the budget that you guys work in, and any relationship you have with a studio or streamer. So dive in, Aaron.
Yes, my name is Aaron Edmonds. I work at Hartbeat, run their film division. As far as budget level, it depends with our studio partner, but we will work on films that we finance as low as like $2 million, and then we'll work on movies up to 100 plus with a studio partner. We currently have a deal at Netflix where if Kevin Hart is in the movie, we're exclusive and that movie goes through Netflix. But if we are packaging a film that doesn't feature Kevin, then we can take it to anyone in the town.
Great.
My name is Lauren Mann. I am an independent producer and financier. I really try not to have any mandates whatsoever, but I just tend to the stories and projects that I tend to gravitate to are usually under 10 million.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any relationships with studios or streamers that you're like, oh, I do have a good relationship here?
No.
We're going to be very honest. Seth.
Hey guys, I'm Sev Ohanian, founder alongside Ryan and Zinzi Kugler of Proximity Media, and we do studio movies for the most part, which could range anywhere from 20 plus million. But in my indie days, and the smaller movies I like to make are usually around that 10 million, 7.5 million net range. I like that range quite a bit. And I have a good relationship with Sony, where we've made The Searching and Missing movies, and Lionsgate for our little movie run. And on Proximity side, we just released Sinners at Warner Brothers, who were really great, and we got a cool new movie coming out with Paramount next year.
Is there a mandate that you have, or something that you're specific that you're looking, knowing kind of the movies that Ryan makes?
Yeah, so at Proximity Media, it's kind of cheesy, so bear with me, but our company's title is Proximity, and the kind of movies we want to make are movies that bring audiences in close proximity with often overlooked subjects. Mm-hmm. So if you think about our film Sinners, if you guys saw that, it's an event-driven movie that's also a mandate for us, but it really brings people in, into close proximity with themes that are really specific to that film, about the concept of ownership and freedom, and even things such as plantation money and things like that you would not have otherwise known about, but by watching our movies you are now exposed to that.
Great, thank you. Lila?
Hello, I'm Lila Yacoub. I'm an independent producer. I don't really have a mandate either. I would say if it's a good script, I just have to do it. So that's kind of how I function. But my budgets have been anywhere. Francis Ha was tiny. East of Wall was tiny. But then there's been other projects that are, $40 or $50 million. So it really is not about the budget per se. In terms of relationships, these movies have sold to various different studios. I feel like I've had a good relationship with all of them. So, you know, a lot to A24, I would say. But, you know, all over the place.
So I have a follow-up question for you, but let's get to Ryan doing his introduction, and then I'll come right back to you for a second.
Ryan Zacharias. I am a founding member of Fat City with Sarah Murphy. We same thing as everybody else. I mean, we kind of like our degrees of budgets range from, you know, smaller to big. You know, it's like we kind of play in a similar range. You know, studio-wise, I think we've worked with everybody and kind of just, you know, I think the ultimate idea is like it's just all hard shit. So it's like we just, you know, you just kind of stay patient and kind of work through whatever it is you got to work through. But yeah, I think it's Yeah.
So, you know, Lila brought up this point that, you know, she has relationships with different places because of her movies, but picking that project when you aren't getting paid is kind of trying to figure out how am I going to get a project to the screens in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, maybe it never gets to the screen. You're not getting paid for that. So what do you use, all of you, to pick the project so that you feel like, I know I can get this movie made, I'm not going to give up on it, I'm really passionate about it? What are some of those filters that you look for?
You asking me again? Or?
Yeah, well, let's
Okay.
start with you, and then we'll go all around.
Well, I'm just, you know, some people are better at selling something. I am not one of those people. So unless I absolutely love it, I just can't sell it to anyone. So for me, it's not really about, I might not get paid for a long time, but I just do it anyway because I have to. And you know, I mean, we've all read like a bunch of stuff, and like the good ones just don't come around that often. So when you see it, you're like, I must do this.
Great. What about for someone like Kevin Hart's company? Like, how do you guys pick a project?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say like our mandate generally it's humor, heart, and heat. So we're kind of like looking for projects that check those boxes, like where comedy is like the through line. It's definitely a story that has heart to it. And then as far as the heat, it's something that's in the zeitgeist and it's like in the air and you can kind of feel it. So that's like the general filter. I think for myself, when I'm looking at things though, because I kind of grew up and came in through the studio, I'm always looking at like audience and thinking about who would want to watch this? Like, am I saying something, or is the movie touching on something that is in the air that people can get excited about? And that usually gets me a little excited, and then I start really digging into, is the story doing that justice?
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I've ever read was when Margot Robbie was doing press for Promising Young Woman, which her company produced, and she was asked, how do you pick your projects? And her answer was amazing. It was like, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no. And that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, that's great. Seth?
Oh man, so for me, I really want to try and make event-driven projects, which is so easy to say, it's so much harder to do. Audiences become so savvy, the marketplace is so saturated, just even thinking about film and television alone, not even mentioning social media and everything else that's out there. How do you make something that'll pop in today? And I can't pretend to know the answer, but for me, I certainly look for things that are a little bit weird. I think it's not enough anymore to just make a really good haunted house movie or a really good spy movie. It's got to have something original and fresh about it. And I really thought long and hard about like, well, how can I come up with the metric for this? And I came up with one, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Can I talk about it?
Yeah.
So you guys know those little dogs that don't have noses, pugs?
Okay.
That's the name of those dogs, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So think about pugs. P-U-G-S. So P, when I'm looking at a script, is it propulsive? And propulsive to me is it's got to have narrative momentum. And like think about this with your own projects. Like does each scene rush you into the next? And that doesn't mean like it has to be an action movie. Like I think the movie Moonlight is a propulsive movie. It's really about each scene, you know, being a but then or therefore instead of an and then. You guys know what I'm referencing?
Yeah.
So that's propulsive. You is unique, which is back to the idea of a weird. Like it has to feel fresh. Like you haven't seen this before. Even if it's in a tried and true genre or franchise, it's like just got to have that originality to it. I really think you look at anything that's been working in theaters this year or last, you can point to that as one of the biggest things. G for me is genre blending. Like my theory is that audiences are really hungry for two genres in one now. And again, I think, I'll just point to even our own movie Sinners, which is it's a horror, but it's also a musical, but it's also historical drama. Like, it's a gangster movie. Like, just the more you can blend genres in a way that makes sense, I think that you'll find success. And then S is for surprising, which is, I want a script that 20 pages in, I can never guess the third act or the ending. And I think too often you might read a good script, but you kind of know where it's going. I think that's not enough anymore for audiences. And this applies to a $100 million movie, in my opinion. It applies to a $1 million movie. But yeah, Pugs.
And Pugs, that's fantastic. Do you think with the
Thank you.
algorithms that streamer? Go ahead, yeah. Do you think like streamers and studios follow something similar like that? Are you having success with Pugs? Is really the
Could I be
question.
licensing it is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Could I be good? You guys all heard it here today, so if you guys hear about Netflix doing that, no, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how the studios or streamers analyze stuff. Maybe there's an algorithm or something. I'm not quite sure. I want to imagine it's still ultimately creative executives who read stuff and have to use their best judgment and are often making sure they're not going to get fired for whatever they choose, which makes it hard, obviously. But yeah, no, I'm not sure how the studios do it.
I kind of think they do. They don't call it Pugs.
I hope
I think
not.
that's like a great way of summarizing it. But I think generally most executives, they're reading through it and they're getting excited about the things that have them kind of like, oh man, I gotta turn the next page and see what's happening and where it is blending genres, because I do think we've seen that trend in the last 3 to 5 years. Like, those are the things that are working.
But can I ask, a film like Lady Bird, right? That wouldn't fit within Pugs, would it? Would that movie get made through Pugs? The lens of Pugs?
I'm so sorry, guys.
Except you open things up, man.
It's a coming of age movie, right?
Yeah, not in that definition necessarily, but
And it's an indie movie. A24 exists to support those kind of auteur filmmaker voices, but I think so many indie films, I love movies from the 70s. So many of those movies are next to impossible to get made now because they don't fit into the box that it's genre blending, it has the 5 different elements that they need, the right cast that they need, but there were so many actors from that time frame that weren't hunky movie star looking people that Robert Duvall or any of these other guys that were fantastic on the screen but weren't those movie stars. So how do you, in this audience, have an original movie that's just a great independent film, but it doesn't fit in the studio streamer algorithm? So you have to go to outside financing for it, right, Ryan?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I just went through it now with a trap movie called Alpha Gang, which is kind of like a big alien movie. It's an alien comedy about these 7 people that come to like an Earth and discover like what it means to feel human emotions and human physicalities, and like on paper you're like, that's a genre movie. It's like action comedy. It's a war movie. Like, has all these elements, but then when you read the script, it's like played by dramatic actors in a comedic tone, and it's really hard to like twist that into like what it is when you present it to financiers or readers, because cast love the film, financiers are kind of like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
You're right.
So it's a little bit like you have to kind of like use car salesman kind of to like pitch it in a way that you sell the genre element but still keep the you still get the creative intact, which is like all the movie is. So it's kind of like with that movie, it takes, it took me 6 years to put it together, and that's like I've fired cast, I recast it, I fired. It's like one of those things that you just have to keep on going at it, but you have to kind of like trick people into buying into what it is, that it's going to be a big movie, it's going to be a sellable movie, it's going to be a commercial film. Financially, we had to, we did pretty good on pre-sales, but like it was a kind of a still with the Kate Blanchett, a who's who of cast, we still did a lot of equity raising and selling the idea that it's going to be a genre movie. It's just a little bit, it's, an odd movie.
Well, we're going to jump around a little bit, but I think it's really important to talk about financing and independent financing outside of the studio system, because you're going to win a lottery. Sometimes it's a lottery. It's like, be careful what you ask for, but if you're going to be working with the studio, you kind of have it, you kind of know what the fees are, you kind of know what your budget is, and you just got to pray that it's going to get green light. But for most of the audience out here, it's going to be trying to figure out how to do independent financing. So let's talk about how you finance an independent film. There's usually 3 buckets, right? Let's talk about those 3 buckets. The tax credits, right? And the equity, and the foreign pre-sales. If you can get all 3 of them at the right levels, hopefully you can greenlight your movie. So all 3 of them have challenges today. And I think it's really important that we dive in and talk about how to finance your movies, and if we can figure out any opportunities that exist in the marketplace. So first, let's talk about the challenges of why it's so hard to finance a movie with those 3 buckets, right? So studios and streamers are looking for very specific algorithms and things, right, to make your movie. What are some of the challenges that you guys are finding in the marketplace to finance independently outside of studios, or trying to even pitch to studios?
I mean, I just think ultimately, like, it's just competitive, you know? So I think it's when you have something, and it kind of goes back to like how you read and what you say yes to, because it's like the competition's deep and the financiers are few in a lot of ways. So it's like, and there's like there's not a lot of, there's a lot of material that they want to. So it's like, I think the idea is like, it really is, the challenge to me is like, it's just people having enough bandwidth to invest in your movie. But I feel I think the 4th level of that is like this begging situation that kind of goes into like how you put things together. Because you kind of, I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought here, but I feel it's like one of those things that you just can't, you have to kind of like throw something out there that's very, like, it's a yes, you know, and it kind of goes back to how you develop the script and how you work through the creative. Is like, you have to kind of like, you can't go in with like, you have to sell it in a way that they're going to say it's an inevitable yes. It's not like a.
Yeah, I get that, but also I feel like, I mean, we've had 3 independent films right now unravel for all unexpected reasons, so they're unpredictable. But usually it's, you know, going to Cannes and finding out, oh, foreign distributors want finished films now, not they don't want to help package films. It's too risky. Or, you know, Trump announced the tariffs right before Cannes, and that put the market into a freeze. So all of these films that were supposed to get specific dollar amounts in certain territories, it wasn't happening. So, you know, there's so many obstacles and curveballs to figuring out, you know, how to get these independent films made. What are some of the ways that you've found success in trying to push a project forward outside of the studio streamer system?
Well, I think also, the biggest thing is I always look at, is this responsible budget-wise? Mm-hmm. And that's why I kind of love playing in a smaller budget, because, you know, if you can, I mean, I also think it's the ultimate test for, I love working with first-time filmmakers, because it's like the good pressure of, you know, this is kind of a make it or break it. Your career rides on this, and it kind of shows ultimately, like, can you make a lot with a little? Mm-hmm. And that to me is like, Swiss Army Man was under, you know, it was 3.2 million, and that was kind of, so I think being responsible budget-wise, and to me as a financier, that's always something that I look at, is the package that's being put together. Like, is it wildly unrealistic from a budget perspective? And if you look at something and you're like, oh wow, that actually, and you talk to the team and you're like, oh no, I think they can actually do this, and this is like exciting that they are willing to kind of make concessions, and they're excited about being creative in a small box. I think that's what I always kind of, you know, again, I love, like, this is why we're here. I love independent film. I never think about studios when I make a movie, ever.
So if you're getting no's a lot on the film and you feel like the boxes are being checked, it's most likely because the budget's too high?
Sometimes. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest conversations that I'm constantly having, or just projects that I see that I'm just like, no, I'm not going to waste my time on that, because that budget doesn't make sense and it's never going to get made.
Mm-hmm. And do you look, even when you're picking an independent film like that, of how commercial it can be?
No, never. I don't believe in, I mean, and that's where I'm weird, and I'm just like an art film freak, is that I never look at something from a commercial standpoint.
Okay, so let's talk then about So let's start with tax credits. Do you have to rely on tax credits if you're dealing with Netflix and all of that stuff? So you probably haven't even to just like figure out where you want to shoot your movie, but Netflix is probably more lenient, right?
No.
No.
Yeah, I think the reality is like in this economy, the cost of everything has gone up. So even when you are working with a studio movie, they are kind of set on where's the place that we can get the most incentive, and that's where we're going to do this film. So like lately, New Jersey has been like a big place that everyone's going to because of the incentive that's there. I know London is becoming a place as well. A few years ago, Budapest was like really, really big, and it's still pretty big. So, even on the studio side of things, they're trying to compress that budget as much as possible so that there is some sort of potential margin to, make money off of it.
Can you guys talk about why it's so hard to make movies in the U.S. right now? You've talked about London, you've talked about Budapest. Every single one of our projects is having to take place overseas. All of our movies are U.S. movies. So talk about, we had great deals with the WGA, DGA, SAG, all of these great union deals, but now it seems like there's so few amount of crews working in the U.S. Like you think about Atlanta, Marvel is shooting the next two Avenger movies in London, right? LA has tax credits to increase their budget, but it seems like very few films are still able, indie films are still able to at least shoot in Los Angeles. Why, what's happened?
I mean, I think I could speak to
Please.
this since I come from a line producing background. I mean, it's just math, basically. It's cheaper to shoot things anywhere except here, unfortunately, and it makes me really upset. I mean, I live here, I want to work here, I do not want to go elsewhere. But unfortunately, the cost of our fringe benefits on crew are so high that, any financier is just not going to give you the money. Like, I don't want to go anywhere else, but unfortunately, it is math.
So let's talk about that math. It's because crews, you're not tied to union fees, so you can pay them a lot less overseas, right? The exchange rate.
The fringe benefits are paid by the government. They're not paid by the employer, generally speaking. So there's many reasons. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's cyclical. So ultimately, things are going to go overseas, and then those rates will start to go up, and then eventually it will come back. But right now, it's really challenging. I have a project that has the California tax credit, which is also very hard to get to begin with, but I still can't find enough money to make it. And so now I'm investigating Spain. Like, I don't want to go to Spain, but I mean, I love Spain, but like, I live here. So,
Isn't it cost of living, just in general?
it's just everything is just higher, right? So New Jersey, because it's got a huge tax credit, is actually comparable to Toronto, right? But if you go to, Serbia or some of these other countries that have like lower cost of living, lower labor rates, all that, it's very hard to compete. And like I said, I think it is cyclical. I don't think this will be forever, but for right now, it's challenging.
It is just like, I think the Alpha Game movie I just did in Hungary, the cost of living over there is so incredibly cheap, and the crews, like, the first budget I looked at, like, for Bulgaria, I was like, I think there's zeros missing because it was so, like, it was so cheap.
Oh,
like,
my God.
People, like, the grip was getting paid, like, 70 years. I was, like, insanely, like, I was like, I think there's a missing number here, and they're like, that's what people require to live, and I'm kind of like, so the movie we made would probably be, like, 5 times the amount shooting here than would be in Hungary, which is, like, tax credit, pre-sales, loans against unsold territories, and then equity, and it's kind of like, and we made a big film. It's like everything's just cheaper. Like, we had tanks in the movie, and like a tank in the U.S., I don't know how much that is. It's outrageous, but like over there, it's like it's kind of free. You know what I mean? So it's like, what am I gonna do?
Okay, so we covered tax credits. Then we have foreign sales. Can we talk about the foreign sales market and the struggles within the foreign sales market?
So that's the area that, for me, frustrates me the most. And I think it's because, particularly in the moments where we were really pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion, like on this side, when you try and go out to pre-sale, they're a little further behind.
Right.
And so you run into these situations where you might have like a fire cast that has all these amazing, actors and actresses, and they don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're great. And so
When you're talking about that, you're saying basically actor values.
Yes.
The value that an actor has, whether they're hot right now, doesn't mean that the foreign sales market has already valued them as being a certain, because they may not have been proven in the box office for 10 years.
Exactly. And so, it's why like you'll have movies with like, Gerard Butler, or people like that, high value in the foreign market because they know who that is, safe, what have you, and then you are able to kind of churn out those types of movies. And I think it, in my opinion, sometimes stifles the creativity when you're trying to figure out how to properly cast your film and get that money. So I think when you're looking at these three things, you always have to, there's trade-offs and everything. And it's like you have to be strategic in looking at what type of story do you have, what's the cast that you want to, put in that story, and then based off of that, which one of these avenues is the best one to pursue to try and finance your movie. And for me, because a lot of times I am working with things where I want to champion diverse voices and have people of color at the center of my stories, pre-sales is
It's not even an option.
not the thing that
Yeah.
I tend to go for.
Right. Truthfully, is there, outside of Denzel Washington, I'm trying to think of, like, are there any real foreign, like, to me, I find that any of the major actors that are breaking in the U.S. almost very rarely have foreign value. So when you're relying on that being one specific piece to getting your movie made, and you're already knowing you're going to have to shoot overseas now because it's going to be very hard to make that movie in the U.S., and the likelihood of trying to convince all of those great hot actors now to go over to Budapest to try to shoot that movie for 3 months, you're already now in another uphill battle. So, how are we trying to manage the foreign sales market? What do we do? How are we navigating the foreign sales market? Because from my understanding and my experience now that we're dealing with, they want finished films. They want safety. So we can't give them safety. Now we also have these actors that, from the 80s and 90s that have value, but the current actors don't have value. So we can't really rely on the foreign sales market that much. Isn't that the truth?
That's how I feel. That's just me personally, though.
Yeah, I think
like
it's-
I feel just they can catch up whenever they want to catch up.
Yeah,
but, like,
it's an
make the movie you
antiquated
wanna make.
idea. Like that idea of like value in a human being is like it's garbage.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have this leg. If I had legs, I'd kick you. It's Rose Byrne, A$AP Rocky, and Conan O'Brien. That's like the main cast, and it's kind of like I love those people. I love them all. Like I want to see that movie, but if I take that to market, people are gonna be like that. None of that works. And so it's like, what do you mean none of that works? On the page, in my mind, as a filmmaker, as filmmakers, it works in my mind because it's like the personalities, it's creative, the personalities are great, they're different, they're funny, they're dramatic. But in like a papered analytical value, that doesn't ring true until you make the movie,
Right.
and now it pops. And so you're like, you guys are full of bullshit, you're full of shit. Like there's none of it's real.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
isn't
like,
it true? And I'm just going to say it. No one knows anything.
Yes,
bullshit.
that's what I keep. So
No one knows anything. That's the takeaway from this panel.
No,
it's
it's
all
true.
bullshit and no one knows anything
No.
because you're to figure it out yourself, right?
Well, each film is its own thing. Like you can't compare one. I mean, they're comps, and that's a lot of. I'm sure we all know that. A lot of the conversations that we have about our projects, we throw out these comps. But when you think about it, like I just did a movie with Rooney Mara, and it was my biggest heartbreak that we got no offers for domestic. I mean, we had a decent
No
for-
offers for Rooney Mara for
No.
domestic?
I mean, but it was again, I'm an art film freak, and it was over 3 hours. It was half in Spanish. It was black and white, But like
Sounds awesome.
yeah,
It's like, I
called La
want that.
Cocina. It's streaming on Movie.
Wait, there's a pug part in there. Unique?
Yes,
You?
very,
Unique?
very. I mean, that I thought that was a movie that I started before Joyland, and I thought it would hit all the marks that, ironically, Joyland hit. Like, didn't get into Cannes, didn't get into Venice, and a lot of times and I still. That's why I think we can all say, like, if we don't passionately love something, because I always assume, like, am I going to stand by this if the worst case scenario happens? And, I never thought that was going to happen with this film, although, we did hit some great positive things, but nothing like going into it, I thought, stupidly, maybe we'll be at the Oscars, and that's like the worst thing to ever tell yourself. Ever.
Jinxed it. You jinxed it.
Yeah, but, it's just, you don't, and it did teach me, I'm like, there's nothing, like, and also it taught me, like, not to listen to agents, not to listen to foreign sales agents, and you have to just always trust your gut and, trust the voice, if your instincts are usually right.
So, Seb, does Ryan Coogler have to deal with any of this stuff?
Yeah, I think everyone does. I think, like, you got to look at it from a really big global picture, right? 10 years ago, all the streamers were, like, multiplying, right? Like Paramount Plus or Peacock or all of them. Like, they were all really, like, everyone was on a race to, like, get their stock prices to go up because that's how business works. It's all about growth at the time. And how do you generate growth if you're a streamer? Acquisition. So if you were at Sundance like 2014 to 2017, 18, I mean, it was like the upper floor of the Titanic, right? Yeah. It was like people were buying movies left to right, and therefore, if you think about it mathematically, that means there was more investors who were trying to, because investors are not charitable people. They want to make more money, so they see an opportunity. Hey, I'll give you money for your Rooney Mara movie. Hell yeah! And Netflix is going to buy it for X amount. We'll be happy. But things have changed, right? And things keep changing because of COVID and because of the streamers bubble somewhat bursting and Wall Street seeing this and that and tariffs and all the things that are happening. So the marketplace is not what it used to be. And speaking of comps, like, you can't compare your movie that you're developing today to a 2019 movie, for example. That does not equate. So foreign sales is absolutely antiquated. There's so many less investors because they're seeing that Sundance, as an example, it's not like, every day there used to be another huge sale. That's not happening as much anymore. But I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think that just makes that you guys have to be that much smarter about how you guys operate. So no question, you're 100% right. Your budgets have to be slim. Like, things that you think are like would be really nice to get, find a more creative way to get around it. Do not spend the money on the crazy elaborate set. Do something more minimalist, but still, implies that. We made our movie Searching, which is a movie about a dad looking for his missing daughter on a computer screen. We made that for $800,000. 13 days we shot it. We spent all this time editing it. We found ways to just cut every corner you can cut. And when it came to casting, we knew we were never going to cast Gerard Butler for something like that. But it's just a weird computer movie. But we were like, how can we get somebody who's a big enough actor, who's a good actor, that it will kind of be a story by casting him. So we saw in a guy named John Cho, who's an amazing actor, and it was so lovely having a Korean American man in a movie that had nothing to do with Korean culture, but which was even more important for us to do that. So we cast him, and we cast a great comedic actress in a dramatic role, and we just you have to kind of present something. And I'm a big art lover too, but I just feel like the market is asking for genre. I wish I liked horror movies more. I guess I just hate money. But I literally I can't do like indie horrors. But I just want to encourage you guys, as you're starting off, it's not about selling out, but it's about, can you tell your important thematic story that's at the heart of who you are in a way that you can envelop it around a genre, audience-friendly thing that people will fight themselves over for the opportunity to finance it or to distribute it. I think you just can't look at movies as great as they were from 5-10 years ago that were really art-forward, because those are still being made, I would argue, but they're not maybe getting distributed. And I think ultimately, for your first movie, you got to go for something that has a better shot.
Lila, can you talk about that a little bit? Because, you typically don't fit within the genre commercial movies. Your movies are pretty,
Sadly.
They're definitely a gamble. But, thank God A24 exists, because they're willing to gamble on a lot of your films.
Well, I'll give you an example. East of Wall, which came out in August, tiny movie, was shot during the actors' strike, so it was very hard to even. We had to get the interim agreement. It was really challenging. It is a movie with all non-professional actors except for 2 people. So, like, trying to get investors to be like, yeah, I'll sign up for you just, working with these people who've never acted before was really difficult. But listen, I'm not against commercial movies by any means. It's just that the things I seem to gravitate towards aren't necessarily the most commercial, but they are quality, elevated films. So you can make a tiny, tiny movie and elevate it. And you can do that in a multitude of different ways, whether it's you hire a great DP who just knocks it out of the park, whatever it is for you on your film. I'm just not one of the people that says I'm going to try and find this type of movie. I just don't do that. So East of Wall happened to have this crazy sizzle reel, and I didn't watch it for months. And finally, I watched it, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, it was something I'd never seen. So it's you and the pugs. It was unique. And I had just never seen a family like this before. And because this director was thinking, how can I attract somebody in like a few seconds? She did. And this family knocked me out of the park, and it was such a hard movie to put together. Like, it took me a year. I had 5 different investors. There was no foreign sales available for this movie because it's an Americana movie. Like, no foreign sales were happening. Mm-hmm. There was no tax credit in South Dakota where we shot it. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, if I had like every possible obstacle.
But the budget was small, right?
And the budget was small. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was tiny. And that's what you have to do. But we really maximized our shoot days. We had 27 shoot days on a very small.
Wow, that's a lot.
Or 30, between 27 and 30. Like, you can do these things. You just have to be.
How do you get a crew, a union crew? Did you not have a union crew?
Not in South Dakota, no. But we had union people who were working on union just because there was nothing else going on, because it was the strike.
Right.
It was like there was no other projects shooting. But, we had a tiny crew. We had probably like 30 people total.
Wow, okay.
So, there's different ways to do things. I've also worked on the movies where there's, 250 people. Each project is unique. So for me, I feel like I encourage you guys to still make those art films because I love them and I think there's an audience for them. But you really do have to keep it as lean as possible.
So just to summarize, tax credits are hard. Foreign sales are really challenging. So now that leaves us with financiers, with investors, right? So how are we doing with investors? How do we find the right investor? I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, so many investors have already been burned so many times. Usually you get an investor, they're excited about their first movie, thinking it's going to go to Cannes or Toronto or someplace, and it doesn't, or it's going to be picked up by Netflix, or it has Kevin Hart in it, or somebody else, and stuff doesn't happen the way it's supposed to happen. They don't make their money back. They are not going back into the pool to invest in another movie. So you have to cross them off the list, and all of a sudden you realize the lists keep getting smaller. Or you work through the agencies, and they try to keep finding you financiers to pitch to, and you're pitching to 20 or 30 financiers, and no matter how great it is, there's always a reason for them to say no. So how are we breaking through and trying to get investors? Because now in order to do the pool of money that we need more money. We need more investors, right?
Well, I was going to say, as an investor, I have a business partner, and we do invest, and one of the things that we always kind of assume going into it is that we're not going to make our money back. And that's why I'm coming from like an extreme place of privilege but we don't make a lot of movies. We are very picky, and everything that we do, we have partners, investment partners, to kind of mitigate the risk. But it also, one of the things that I think as things get harder, everything that we've done, and it's not like we've sought this out, is I feel like it always helps also when I approach another investor to kind of join us on the journey, is that usually a lot of the films have some sort of social element and theme that, along with you're investing in an art film, but I think the most beautiful thing about films is it's a great way to be an activist, and art through activism, I think, is the strongest, form of it. And so, like, with La Cocina, we partnered with One Fair Wage, which supports and lobbies for fair wages for tipped workers, and that was something, even though everyone lost almost all their money, I think that we were all so aware that this was a film where people were going to feel seen, and it came with so much social activism within an outreach that we felt so proud of. And yeah, like, it's awful that I talk to investors all day, every day about how they got screwed on films, and unfortunately there are a lot of producers out there that are not looking at the long game, and yeah, that does kind of turn people away immediately, but I try to really, I think, being honest and transparent at every turn, and especially when things are bad. And that's why I have good relationships with my co-investors, is because, I immediately tell them, you are probably not going to make your money back, and do not invest in film if you want to make money.
Right. But isn't that pretty rare in terms of you're being okay to lose money on your film? I mean, a lot of investors we meet, it seems like this is like the bottom line for them.
Not in what I'm experiencing and in the little bubble that I'm in. I think everybody invests in a different, like, it's fascinating. Anyone who's a high net worth individual who wants to invest in, they have their own specific reasons. And if someone is looking to just make money off of investing in film, I'm like, I don't think I can work with that person. And I instantly say, well, that's not what I'm all about.
Yeah. Can you talk to me about what budget level that you're willing to invest in?
Yeah, usually, in terms of that's why I like to stay small, because then you kind of have freedom. It's all about, for me.
So under like 1 million is fair, or?
Sometimes depending on the combination of, foreign sales and tax credits, and also, making films, foreign films that are easier to kind of make smaller budgets on. Mm-hmm. It just depends on what people are willing to invest, and that gets tricky, because then you don't want to, 20 to 50 executive producers, and you just kind of look at how many, and that can tell you a lot about how a film has gotten financed.
Right. So we have 5 minutes left, and I think maybe what's really important is all 5 of you sharing your advice and guidance to the audience on the journey that you've had in terms of how hard it's been to make the movies that you're really passionate about, and what was the loophole or success or opportunity that you figured out to get there. Does that make sense? Aaron? Was there a film that you're like, I really wanted to make this, and I found like every roadblock existed, but then here was the loophole?
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't think I can point out a specific loophole, just because I think every movie is different and has its own challenges. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is, you constantly have to just be in the mode of like not quitting, and in the mode of always trying to solve the problem, and always pushing the rock up the hill. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're thinking in that way, you'll be able to find, the loophole or the opportunity so that your movie can get made. And the one last thing I'll say too is I might be, contrarian with this, but I do think that the one area where there is going to be opportunity for independent filmmaking is on the financing side. And it is because of what you were saying. It's like, there are people out there, individuals who are still willing to invest because they're passionate about, certain causes, or just because they think movies are cool. Like, either way, there are people out there that are willing to, invest in film still. And I think it's, you just have to keep working to find that.
So you're basically saying try to keep finding new money out there. There are a lot of people making money right now. You just got to start tapping into it.
Yes, like when you look at the economy right now too, it's like the middle has fallen out, but the top,
The rich are
5 to
getting
2%,
richer.
they're getting richer, and they need to do something with all the money that they have.
Yeah, I weirdly
Even if
find-
it's like even if it's investing in something just so that they get a tax credit, like take advantage of all of that stuff.
Yeah, I find like weirdly new batches of people a lot, and I don't know where they come from. They just like, because you ask around or you work with somebody, and then that person knows somebody else, and I like discovered this whole slew of new people recently. And I was like, where the fuck you guys come from? It's like but it's like kind of that. It's just like digging in, just kind of never kind of being relentless. I think it's like any art form is that, whether it's a musician or whatever. But I think filmmaking specifically, it is a relentless long game that you just there's been a couple films in my life that I've had to like step away from because I just couldn't figure it out. I just like there comes a point where it's like, all right, I just can't do anything else. I've got to pass it on or do whatever, which is, I think it's okay. Like I used to be a little bit, I'd beat myself up a little bit in the past, but it is kind of thing where it's just blind ambition and relentlessness to just get it done and just like not just say hear no, but like figure out what that no means and how to kind of like redirect that word.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Lila, do you have thoughts on advice for?
I mean, basically, we're all saying the same thing, that you just have to keep at it. Like, there will be times when you feel like, oh, I remember on East of Wall when I had everything in place finally. Finally had cast, investors, and then there was a strike. And I couldn't get the SAG agreement, so I couldn't start shooting. And I'm like, I can't believe I've just spent like 3 years of my life here, and I'm stuck. And I had weather constraints, so I had to do it then, or I couldn't do it at all. And I was really demoralized, and I just didn't know what to do. But like a miracle happened, and I find that all of these projects, whether they're big or small, are little miracles of their own. And somehow, something happens, and it works. And we got the call saying we can sign that agreement, and we like left the next day. But they're all little miracles, so you just have to really just keep at it, even when it seems grim.
Mm-hmm. Seth?
And I so agree with that. I've been lucky to be like an independent producer on like maybe like 10 independent feature films, and every single one was an absolute miracle, beginning to end. To me, my advice is really like a tangible one: is like study the marketplace, like really read the trades. What's selling? What is it selling for? Where is it selling? What are the movies that are premiering and having splashy festival debuts but are not necessarily selling? And again, I hate to be that pragmatic guy, but like just really try and develop towards that, at least with the first movie. That'd be my advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're only as good as your project, and really having something that you love passionately and you're willing to fight the fight for is super important. And also just like through the process, honesty, transparency, communication, and kindness.
How important is it to find good partners with your writers and directors, and maybe just briefly talk about that relationship? Because all of you have had amazing relationships with your filmmakers.
I think it's extremely important. As a producer, it's like you're building that trust with your creative partner, and then when you're working with a studio, like that trust is extremely important just to maintain the integrity of the creative that the filmmaker has. And then when you're working independently, it's like you guys are in the trenches together trying to make this thing happen. I mean, either way, you're in the trenches with this person. So I think it's highly important that you're on the same page, you know what the North Star is, you guys are moving in the same direction, and that you trust each other.
Lauren, you had a great interview where you talked about how it was essential for you, like almost your primary job is to protect the director, to protect the talent, to protect the project. Your job is basically as a protector. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that, and again, that's why it's so important to go into something that you're insanely passionate about, and it's an undeniable thing that you're going to fight for every day. And, I think La Casina was one of the reasons that I was so excited to show up every day for my directors, because he, it was a project that he was trying to do for almost 20 years, and I was the one who was like, of course it's going to be in black and white. Like, to me, like, that was what he wrote on the first page. And I think that when I believe in someone creatively, it also empowers me to be, because this is a piece of art that I'm fighting for. And I'm like, no, like, stand back. I'm going to go to bat. That I feel just, again, that's why I have to so passionately love whatever project and also believe in the director. And that's why I love working with writer-directors and really auteur filmmakers, because I'm like, okay, you do the creative, and also you have to be able to tell them no when it's important, but also to say, like, you're a little creative genius and I'm going to go fight for you.
That's great. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your insight with us, for hopefully inspiring this amazing group of filmmakers, and thank you. The end.